through your experience as a student athlete, and how do you use them in your current position?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really important, especially in the STEM field, that I feel like a lot of people that aren't student athletes sort of lack is a little bit of that charisma and willingness to sort of step forward as like a young entry-level engineer to sort of bring about fresh ideas. I think a lot of entry-level engineers and people in the STEM field are a little bit intimidated because they sort of lack that experience that a lot of the higher level, more experienced workers have. And so they're sort of afraid to voice their opinions, even though they are probably really valuable. So I think having a little bit of that fearlessness and charisma that comes with being a student athlete is something that is extremely beneficial in the STEM field, especially for someone new and young in the field.
For me, I would say time management. Just when I was in college, I kind of got pretty good at balancing out my schedule, knowing how many hours it would take to complete homework assignments, so I knew for practice and sleeping and all of that. And with my job particularly, we kind of have to be in charge of how many hours we work per week, knowing, okay, this project's going to take me this many hours this week to get to 40. So just knowing and being able to estimate that to let not only our bosses know, but just so that we have a full work schedule. So that's really helped me be able to estimate it fairly well. I've noticed compared to some of the other entry level, one thing that lots of people struggle with because that's not something you are used to.
Got it. I know you guys you both touched upon this just very briefly, but what experiences do you have while you were in undergrad that you can say prepared you for getting into your graduate program and in your current position?
I would say in the STEM field, probably the most useful experience from undergrad honestly probably comes from the senior design projects / capstone projects that you do at the end of your 4 years pretty much. Because in general, I would say that undergraduate degrees are a little bit top level, a little bit generalized, and a lot of stuff that you do in your career is going to be pretty specialized. And so that like senior design project is really the best opportunity to sort of take all those general knowledge skills and actually apply it more specifically to something that's actually applicable to industry. And that's probably where you'll end up learning the most actually applicable skills to the real world from an undergraduate degree perspective, in my opinion.
To add on to that, what I found to be the most helpful and how I got both one of my internships and my full-time job is being involved, not just being a part of groups and all that or clubs on campus. For example, through I think it was Women in Electrical and Computer Engineering, I was able to find one of my internships just by going to one of the events and talking to the presenter afterwards. And then I went to an IEEE Power meeting, and through one of the presenters there, after I talked to them, I was able to get an interview for my full-time job. So going to not only being a part of those clubs like that, but participating really will help you meet recruiters and meet people in those fields that will help you propel forward after college.
Awesome. So right now, how has COVID-19 impacted your job and your industry?
Yeah, so the aerospace industry and the space industry really hasn't been affected too bad. Most of the contracts that we do are like with NASA and the government, so a lot of those are deemed essential. So we have had like problems with smaller suppliers and the smaller businesses that we work with having some issues. So there have been some schedule delays and pushbacks. But in general, the aerospace industry is pretty healthy, and most people work from home on the engineering side, and then on the manufacturing side, we've taken a lot of precautions, and the people on the floor actually building the hardware are still doing it. So there's definitely still been solid job security here in the aerospace sector, and everyone's still been doing their job safely throughout this whole crisis.
So my company, we have lots of we're very diverse. We have people that do manufacturing facilities, food and consumer products, renewable energy, gas. So we're all over the place. So we're kind of all over the place as far as how it's affected us. certain sectors like data centers, they've ramped up lots of production as more people are starting to work from home, so we've gotten increased work from there. Whereas on the other side of things, the gas and oil division, all the work is essentially gone. And then places like Clorox, for example, I was working on a project there, but they've for now shut that project down because they have to ramp up production. So small projects aren't too important anymore to them. But I have been able to keep working from home, so that's been nice. I guess the only other thing is that typically you kind of know what your projects are based off months in advance of what's coming up. With COVID-19, things have been canceled very abruptly, started up very abruptly, so it's been a little not as scheduled, but besides that, that's the only difference I've seen.
Got it. So where do you see your industry going in regards to growth and opportunities in the future?
Yeah, I think the space industry right now and the aerospace industry in general is on the verge of a boom. If you guys hadn't seen in the past couple of days when SpaceX launched the Commercial Crew Program, Demo 2 mission, a lot of people got really excited about that. Access to low Earth orbit is becoming more and more commercialized. You're seeing a lot of commercial applications, the medical industry, printing organs in zero gravity. A lot of creativity is being born into, what can we do in zero gravity now that it's getting cheaper and cheaper to get into orbit. So I think we're definitely on the verge of a pretty big breakthrough, sort of almost equivalent to, when people are sending like first emails out in the .com era bubble. So I think there's definitely a lot of potential. A lot of companies are working right now to try and get into the aerospace sector and into the space business before it booms. So I think it's definitely an exciting time to get into the space industry and the aerospace sector. There's definitely a lot of potential going forward in the next 10 to 20 years, I'd say.
For my industry, safety's been a very big component these last 20 years and starting to become more and more important to companies. So, and with that big emphasis on safety, lots of the old sites that I've been at that are 100 plus years old, there's lots of unsafe habits forming there and whatnot. So with safety being such a big factor now, that's going to be very helpful to my industry because we can start implementing more safety things. For example, in electrical rooms within lots of manufacturing facilities, they're supposed to update the arc flash ratings every 5 years. If you look back 20 years, that was not happening at all. And now that's a constant thing for us to be working on. We're always having to do more or updating arc flash studies. So more safety work like that's going to really help the consulting business.
Okay, last question for you both, and then I'll open it up to these three. What do employers within your industry look for in potential candidates?
I think one of the most important things in the aerospace sector and the space sector is having, I guess, more applicable experience and showing that you are really passionate about space. And that was something that I think if I could go back and work on, it would be something like getting more involved in clubs. I know there's like a lot of like rocketry clubs and things like that, but sort of showing on your resume that you're not just a good student, because a lot of these top companies are super, super competitive right now. Everyone wants to get in. So like people with 4.0s might not necessarily get in, someone with a lower GPA, but like someone that had like more applicable experience with clubs and someone that like sort of shows that they have like a passion for the industry and what they want to do going forward is definitely something that grabs recruiters' attentions a bit more than just good grades, I'd say.
I would say independent learning and resourcefulness. One big thing that I realized moving from college to the working force is that, for example, when you're learning new software, no one's going to sit down with you and spend a week teaching you how it works. That was and that's something I really had to learn. You're often told, okay, you have to do this in this format, figure out what you need to do. So it's more so being able to learn on your own. And if you get stuck, being able to know who to go to or what online resources there are, or if the software has a help desk online that can help you out. So being able to do those things independently, I think is really a big benefit and something that companies like mine are looking for.
Any questions before I add in like one or two additional questions?
I just wanted to ask, like, when you guys, or if you did, make a LinkedIn account. I know a lot of people have been talking about making one and how important it is. So I just want to know you guys' thoughts on that and when you made yours, if you did.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the best networking tools. It's sort of like a resume distributor in a sense. I think it's definitely important to make one as soon as you can in college, or you should have like documentation of some sort of resume as early as possible, just so you can keep track of your achievements. And then LinkedIn is sort of how you can sort of share that with a lot of companies. So it's definitely very valuable, I think, to start that early. I think I made mine freshman year, and just started jotting down, where I went to school, what I'm studying, and any, design projects or anything that I've been working on, anything applicable to the industry. Because once you start looking at internships, even after your first or second year, it's definitely helpful to have an account set up.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is a great tool. I know I should probably be on mine a lot more than I am, but I think I made mine around sophomore year or so. And one thing that I would say though with LinkedIn is I know when you create your URL, make sure it's not just your name and then a bunch of random letters and numbers. Companies will they'll ask for your LinkedIn, and if you have, for example, I think mine is Amy Ruiz 34, something nice, sweet, and simple. That looks a lot more professional. And also just to make sure you have a professional picture, and if you can't have that, do a headshot from your team pictures.
And then kind of my last thing I would add on that, since it's kind of we work with our students a lot on being able to have their resumes ready, have their LinkedIn and stuff ready. But since you are super young, another thing you can definitely add on is like make sure you're following some of these different companies, just so you're staying in the know with what they're doing. Although if you may not have the experience, just like keeping track with what they're doing, and any community service that you do or have been doing, I would say definitely also do that as well. Okay, last thing. One last question since we have 60 seconds. Or any last tidbits from either one of you two that you would like to give them? Yeah, 20 seconds each.
Just if I was to summarize, I'd say try and specialize a little bit as early as possible. A lot of undergraduate degrees will be really generalized. And a lot of companies are looking for a lot of specific skills. So if you can, just try and go and look at like entry-level company job requisitions and look for what sort of skills they're looking at for different positions, and sort of try and understand if that's something you want to do. And if it is, try and obtain some of those skills that you can find on some of those job requisitions.